Hello, welcome back to Beauty Bee, where I have been neglecting to do some kind of new and makeup video, chatting about new releases, style, content for about 3 months. And I know this is hard to believe, but it turns out that has kind of built up a lot of products to talk about. So instead of doing that, I'm just going to put it off further and just talk about a handful of palettes that have come out that have interested me. And interestingly enough, I found that as I was going through, I was so much more interested in the color stories that drugstore brands were putting out than anything the higher end brands were putting out. I think the only higher end palette that I saw that really interested me was the ABH Norvina Volume 5 or 6. I'll put a picture of that one up, the really purpley one. Whereas I have 7 drugstore palettes that caught my eye. I thought they were really lovely and really interesting, and I decided I wanted to talk about them. So let's get into it, starting with, I think, the largest palette we're going to go with today, which is the Beauty Bay Wilderness palette. This is so pretty to me. I like that it is almost a rainbow palette. I mean, you have a pretty wide variety of colors here. I think you're missing the purple that would make this a true rainbow palette, but it's a really interesting division of the rainbow. I like that you have just one row of warm shades at the very bottom, and then the top 3/4 of the palette are more greens and blues. That row of green, murky greens and golds is really pretty to me. I think that is sort of become a standard fall look in the beauty community over these last 2 or 3 years. I think it's really neat that you could do that with this Beauty Bay palette. And those top 2 rows are calling my name. They look absolutely lovely with this more minty green. We're going to see that several times in the next few palettes. Even though this is almost entirely colorful, or at least what I would consider colorful shades, there's enough neutral-ish shades here, enough more wearable or earth tone shades that I think most people would be able to get full looks out of this palette, which is really important. I mean, yeah, I do have enough bone shades and light browns to last me half a lifetime. That doesn't mean that I want to reach for them when I'm already pulling out, what is this, a 20 pan palette? Come on now. Next, we're going to talk about 2 different BH palettes that have been released over the past few months. I don't exactly remember when this BH Cosmetics collection came out. I remember that there were several 9-pan palettes. The one that interested me the most was the Let That Stuff Go palette. It's not actually called that, but that's what we're going with on this channel because I don't swear on here. I do in real life, quite honestly, but besides the point. Anyway, this is a half neutral, half colorful palette. We've got these murky greens again, which lovely, very pretty, really enjoy those. But we also have these more clay toned neutrals, which I thought was interesting. I like the contrast that you would get from a clay shade with a murky green. I mean, those are not quite complementary colors, but they're pretty close. Definitely, I do like putting something that's a little bit more orange or at least a little bit warmer, maybe a yellow, in my crease when I am going with a blue or green lid. I think that would make for some really pretty looks. Again, it's this sort of muted color that I think a lot of people could wear for every day, even if they aren't super comfortable wearing, neon green eyeliner to work. I can say that I'm not. I could definitely use this. And BH has been knocking it out of the park recently, I think. Really just across the board with their eyeshadow palettes, at least. I don't think they've released too many other things that I found very interesting at all. But the travel series. The travel series definitely intrigues me. I have some strong thoughts about some palettes that they should release, and I've talked about those at length, so we're not going to go into that. But they came out with a Paris one recently that is so pretty. I think that this really fills a niche that BH had been missing in their travel series, in that this actually goes quite deep. And it's not just one or two really deep colors. There are quite a few deep mattes. I think that this would function really well on people with darker skin tones. I also think that it would work really well just to give a bit more of a dramatic or sultry deep look on lighter skin tones. They've managed to make this really dark palette that's also colorful with these purples. You've got a little bit of red, some light pinks that would allow you to blend out those purples and the almost midnight shades. I think that this would be really usable and just really fun. The 16 pan palettes supposedly have excellent quality. I've actually never tried anything from BH, I believe. I've swatched a couple of their palettes in store before, but I've never owned anything from them. This is really lovely. I don't think that it would be my first choice of palettes to purchase from BH if I were to decide to make an order from them, but I definitely think that they did a good job with this release. It looks really lovely. Now on to Colourpop. Colourpop came out with this Y2K collection, and it brought up a lot of feelings. Most of them were negative because it was, I don't know, it's just Y2K fashion in the way that it's marketed to Gen Zers, at least, really sends me back to this very like kindergarten stage. I mean, I was in kindergarten when the year 2000 came about, and like the butterfly clips and all of that, that doesn't read as girls in their late teens, early 20s to me. That still reads as 5-year-old. Also, all of the promotional images, or at least many of the promotional images, prominently feature a caboodle, and I loved my purple sparkly butterfly caboodle. I don't know why I let my mom convince me when I went to college that I shouldn't take it and I should instead give it to Goodwill, but I did, and I have been regretting that day. I also looked into buying one on Etsy, and it was going to be $40, and I hate that so much. So anyway, we're off topic. But the palettes that came out with this collection were really stinking cute. I liked all three of them, but I decided I was only going to talk about one, and this is definitely my favorite. This is the Just a Glitch palette, and it is this really light pastel lilac and pastel minty teal, and yes, just yes, I want this. It is so pretty. I'm a little confused by the model behind these 5-pan palettes. I can't justify one of the 5-pan palettes from Colourpop when they have the 9 pans that cost almost the same amount. I know that realistically I could get very similar colors from other Colourpop palettes. Actually, I could get very similar colors from 3 Colourpop palettes that are headed my way right now, but it is really very lovely, and I think that I could get some really fun looks out of this. I suspect that I would do mostly semi-monochromatic looks. I would probably keep either to the lavenders or to the mints, but I would definitely get some good use out of this were I to purchase it, which I'm not going to. The next Colourpop palette I don't remember coming out, which isn't that surprising because they come out with something every like 3 days at least, it seems recently, but I really liked this. I liked it enough to bookmark it, and I don't bookmark a huge number of items, but as I was going through my bookmarks, I was like, oh, she's very cute. And this is the Oh So Lovely palette. I don't really know what the theme of this was supposed to be. Just reading through the name, it doesn't seem like there's really a theme to it beyond maybe some kind of arts and crafts-ish thing. It's lace up, organza, craftworks, fingered. Really? Fringed. Oh my god. Braided. Macaroon, not macaron. Macaroon. Eyelet, Rose Avenue. I don't see the theme there, but maybe I'm just missing something obvious. However, I think that this is really, really cute. I like that Colourpop is doing something a little bit different with this one in making their shimmery shades be the more neutral colors and the mattes be a little bit more colorful. I mean, there are a couple of exceptions to that general rule, but really all of the shimmers, with the exception of one, Collective, are more neutral. Most of the mattes are fairly colorful. And this just suits how I do my makeup. I do like to have a mid-tone shimmer all over my lid, and then quite often I'll blend that out with something that's a little bit lighter of a matte. And really all of the mattes, with the exception of Topanga Boulevard, which is the deep wine shade in the bottom right corner, suit that really well. This is indeed lovely, as the name would suggest, and I'm not sure why it hasn't gotten more airtime on YouTube. I mean, probably because Colourpop has come out with like 32 palettes or something since then, but I mean, that's it. It's because they've come out with God knows how many little collections since then. Then the last two palettes that I have to talk about today are both from Juvia's Place. Juvia's Place brought out these Rebel quads, and I liked the two green ones. I guess that's not that surprising, having seen the rest of this video. But the two that interested me the most were definitely Army and what is the other one called? Mint. Fair enough. The mint one is, as you would suspect, a minty quad. I think that all of the tones in here are probably represented in the Colourpop Mint to Be palette, which has just been on the fringes of my wish list since it was teased, however many years ago at this point. But it's really, really pretty. I enjoy mint eyeshadow a lot. I think it's a very pretty color, and this seems like a really compact, cute way to get a nice variety of mints. And then the Army palette is a pretty similar story. Yes, this is more of that swampy, murky green, but it's a really nice set of swampy, murky greens. I don't know that I personally would get a lot of looks that just use this palette. I think that I would want to dip into some neutrals and some lighter shades other places in my collection, but I think that some people could definitely get a few different full looks out of this palette. And the tones in it are just so lovely. They're this really deep, saturated, murky green without going too yellow, and I think that they're just beautiful. The drugstore has really been killing it. I guess none of these are technically true drugstore brands. You can't go into CVS and pick up any of these, though I guess now you can go into Target and pick up Juvia's Place and maybe some Colourpop too. Anyway, I think that the drugstore has been doing a way better job than the higher end brands recently, especially seeing that new Too Faced, is it Cinnamon Swirl or Cinnamon Spice palette that they put out, are going to put out for holiday. Yeah, I'm not impressed, but these drugstore-ish level brands have just been killing it. I would love to hear if any of the recently released palettes have been calling to you. whether you think that higher end or drugstore has been doing a better job recently. I really hope you enjoyed this video. Please consider liking and subscribing if you enjoyed, and I really hope that I will see you next time. Bye!